Making a simple, seemingly innocent change to your travel itinerary doesn't usually destroy your life. But for one British couple, it literally turned a dream vacation into an absolute international nightmare. Welcome to The Explainer.
So imagine this. What if simply asking some locals about, the good life got you a 10-year prison sentence? Crazy, right? Well, that is the exact terrifying reality for British nationals Lindsay and Craig Foreman. They were just passing through Iran, asking a few completely harmless questions for a presentation they were putting together for a conference in Brisbane. But instead of just gathering some interesting research on human happiness, they were slapped with espionage charges.
To put this into perspective, their intended reality was this freewheeling, wind-in-your-hair motorcycle trip all the way from Europe down to Australia. But their actual reality? Well, for 16 months and counting, they've been locked away inside a brutal Iranian prison. This wasn't just a wrong turn on a road trip, folks. It morphed into a desperate daily fight for their survival. Let's just look at how terrifyingly fast this whole thing escalated. In January 2025, they crossed over from Armenia into Iran. They were only planning to stay for a few days, but bam, they were immediately arrested. Lindsay spent 57 agonizing days locked in solitary confinement down in the city of Kerman, while Craig had to endure these horrific blindfolded interrogations. Then, around July, they get moved to the capital's notorious Evin prison. And the worst part, they were moved under the totally false promise that they were going home. Finally, the crushing blow hit them in February when they were officially handed a 10-year sentence.
Section 1. Inside Iran's Evin prison. Okay, so the daily horror these two are facing is just unrelenting. The prison itself is completely unhygienic. I mean, we're talking zero healthcare, absolutely no dental care. Craig is constantly having to dodge violent fights between other inmates who are literally wielding homemade weapons. Their only real lifeline to the outside world is these payphone calls patched through to them by their son, Joe, back in the UK. But get this, even those precious calls are heavily monitored. They're constantly interrupted, like every couple of minutes, by an automated Farsi message, just to remind them and to remind Joe that they are prisoners. And listen to this, because if the internal conditions weren't terrifying enough, the external threats are entirely out of their control. During a recent phone call with Joe, a bomb detonated so incredibly close to the prison that the sheer force of the blast popped the windows right out of their frames. Just try to imagine the sheer psychological toll of that. You're trapped inside a locked cell, totally unable to run or seek shelter, while missiles are literally exploding right outside your window. This is not just a holding cell we're talking about here. It is a very real matter of life and death. 4, that is the staggering number of Craig's own cellmates who have been taken away for execution just since last summer. Actually, Lindsay's cellmate was also sentenced to death for protesting. Craig and Lindsay literally watch the people they live with get taken away only to see their executions publicized on state TV the very next day.
Section 2. Caught in geopolitical crossfire. So the intense fear they're feeling isn't even just about their own unjust espionage charges. The danger of their daily lives was drastically amplified during the recent Israel and U.S. war with Iran. The geopolitical chaos happening all around them takes what is already a frightening false imprisonment and turns it into a highly volatile, completely deadly situation. Their safety is quite literally at the mercy of international relations and military strikes. Now, it's interesting to see how the isolation affects them differently, even though they're trapped within the exact same prison walls. Craig is actually held with some other foreigners. He's got an Ecuadorian, a German, and a Romanian in there with him, so they share a bit of camaraderie. Meanwhile, Lindsay is utterly isolated. She's sleeping on a metal bunk in a cell with absolutely zero English speakers. Section 3. The psychology of survival. Given all this, Lindsay has somehow managed to build this highly structured survival mechanism to keep herself sane. Step 1 is physical. She relies super heavily on yoga and just pacing endless laps in the prison yard as her salvation. Step 2 is mental. She reads constantly. Right now, she's absorbing a book about personal growth in difficult times called The Road Less Traveled, and she's absolutely terrified of the day the prison library finally runs out of material. Then, step 3 is professional. She is literally applying her own doctorate in positive psychology to build the mental tools she needs to withstand this daily ordeal. But hey, even with a doctorate in positive psychology, there are definitely days of overwhelming darkness. Lindsay shared this really agonizing thought. She said, "I just feel that we're wasting our lives in here and rotting away." It's just a completely raw, devastatingly vulnerable moment of despair.
I mean, these people are completely innocent, yet they are dealing with the crushing realization that they're just watching their lives evaporate from the inside of a concrete box.
But whenever she breaks down over that shared speakerphone connection with their son, Craig jumps right in. He says, "We can do this. We will do this. So stay strong, my love." I think that really highlights the profound human connection that's keeping them tethered to hope. They aren't fighting this as two isolated prisoners, but as a deeply connected team. Section 4. The Plea for Freedom. So where are they now? Well, the British embassy closed temporarily when the recent war began, and it still hasn't reopened. Consular visits, completely suspended. Basically, all of their official governmental lifelines have been totally severed. Sure, the Foreign Office calls the situation appalling and unjustifiable, but the terrifying real-world reality on the ground is that Lindsay and Craig are entirely on their own. Which brings us to this incredibly direct, desperate plea from Craig to the UK government. He said, "Just take action, speak out, get us out. It seems to me we're sitting here like sitting ducks." Now, Lindsay totally acknowledges her own responsibility, right? She knows they assessed the risk and chose to cross that border. But come on, no innocent tourist ever expects to be traded as a geopolitical pawn with literally zero evidence of wrongdoing. So here's the big question we're left with. With the embassy closed, consular visits totally stopped, and the geopolitical landscape out there being as volatile as ever, what is it genuinely going to take to bring innocent tourists back home? It's a really sobering reminder of just how massive and complex international hostage situations can be, and it's a stark warning about how fragile our freedom actually is. I mean, what really happens when you step across the wrong border at exactly the wrong time? Let that story and that question stay with you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.